Caregiving through the holidays can sometimes feel like a juggling act, as many of us are helping our sick family members and friends every single day. Today on City Chat. From Central Ohio Agency on Aging, we have staff members Patty Callahan and Lynn Dobb here to talk with us about some caregiving tips to make a non-stressful and enjoyable holiday. Thank you to the both of you, Patty and Lynn, for joining us today on the show. Patty, could we start with you? Could you give us some family caregiving tips that we can take throughout the holiday?
Sure. Right now, I think is the best time for a caregiver here in October to begin thinking about their traditional holiday activities with their family and friends. And to stop and think what's going to preserve their time, their energy, and help maybe relieve some stress over the holidays. They don't have to cancel activities. They just have to maybe think a little bit about, what's going to make life a little bit easier, and maybe simplify, maybe just delegate some things to other family members, maybe in terms of the holiday meals. Maybe it's time to pass the baton to somebody else in the family if you've been the one that's been doing all of the cooking every year. In terms of things like the shopping and that sort of thing, think about maybe doing gift cards or a family gift exchange so that you're not having to shop for everybody, and maybe go a little easier on the decorating. The caregiver's going to need to share their thoughts and their needs with their family, sometimes some family members, these are long-standing, ingrained traditions in the family, so that's not always easy for some family members, so they, really need to let them, understand why it is they need to maybe make some changes, and not let family, or anyone, really make them feel guilty about it. This is about being able to enjoy the holidays and come through caregiving healthy and whole.
Yeah, definitely. And as a caregiver advocate, can you kind of tell us a little bit about your role and what you do?
Sure. Part of what I do is just consultation with family caregivers over the phone. We receive calls there. We have been doing this since actually 2001. And this is just an opportunity for caregivers who might be new to caregiving to get information. Sometimes we're dealing with caregivers who are in a bit of crisis because someone's being discharged and there hasn't been a lot of planning in terms of who's going to provide help and what are the resources available to provide that help. We're part of an information and assistance team at COAAA, and so what we do is really provide any kind of resource information that an older adult or their family caregivers might need.
And Lynn, could you share with us what can a caregiver do if they need a break?
Well, a break is important because as a caregiver, you're in it for the long haul, and so you have to pace yourself. Another word that we sometimes use for break is getting respite. So time away from the daily activities of being a caregiver. I like to think of it and talk to people about thinking about what their friends and family, that informal network, who may they be able to reach out to, and then our formal care system, which comes in the role of government assistance programs such as the National Family Caregiver Support Program, senior levies, or Medicaid waiver programs. Those programs can help bring services into the home to give the caregiver some additional help. Okay. Friends and family, a lot of times people will say, what can I do to help? We tell caregivers, have a list. And it may be as simple as saying, can you come over on Friday afternoon for a couple of hours and sit with Dad so I can go take a nap, walk around the block, read a book, whatever it may be. The key is that a lot of times we want to take it all on ourselves, and if we don't ask, we can't get that help. Right. And realizing that we're not superwoman or superman, and so reaching out to others is critical. In terms of reaching out to the Area Agency on Aging, our 1-800-589-7277 can be reached, and the individual can ask to talk to a caregiver advocate. And as Patty just explained, we're there to try and help support them and help them navigate through some of the challenges they may be facing.
Could you kind of go more into depth about how caregivers, when they approach that family conversation about the holidays and assigning or, deciding who is going to be the main caregiver, can you tell us how we can approach that conversation?
Sure. Well, first, the key is have the conversation. Have the conversation ahead. Don't think about the conversation, actually have the conversation. Be honest and be forthright, and try and keep, as best as possible, emotions, strong emotions out of the picture, and just say, as we're gearing up for the holidays, I just want to share some thoughts as I've been caring for my loved one in terms of things that may be helpful for both he or she and as well as myself. So you may think, what does that mean? It's recognizing that the individual that's being cared for, that when they come to the holiday gatherings, there's lots of people, there's lots of hubbub, and that may be too much. Okay, it may be overstimulation. So it may be saying, when we're at the house, we may have to go into another room for a little while so mom or dad can have some quiet time and just not be overstimulated. Or it may be that I, as the caregiver, I always make 5 different kinds of pies, and I'm stressed and I'm just not up for it. And to be able to say, I know I hate to break tradition, but in order to keep my sanity, and it's okay because you have to advocate for yourself, I think we might be doing, store-bought pies, or could you help me and let's do it together. Right. Again, being upfront about what your needs are and recognizing that, it's okay to say, I'm tired. This has been difficult, and I'm looking forward to the holidays, but I have some trepidation. Yeah. Also, things like sharing that dad may seem like he's with it because he can do chit-chat real easily, but he's, if you go any further, you may see that he's not as oriented to what's going on. Right. Or things like preparing if it's an afternoon event, if somebody's going to have to go, if dad's going to have to, or mom is going to have to go to the restroom, do we have clear pathways? Make the day, kind of like think ahead in terms of what might be needed in that environment so that everybody can feel as relaxed as possible. And also as the caregiver, when we think in terms of the holidays with gift giving, I think it's important for caregivers at that time, it's a wonderful opportunity to say, the best present you can give me would be to come and spend some time with mom or dad so that I can have a break.
We talked a little bit about some changes that you might see in the person that you're caregiving for. Patty, how can a caregiver prepare family for changes they may notice in the person that they are taking care of?
Well, I think first of all, right now, as just to build on what Lynn was saying, it's time to take stock of what family might see when they come for a visit that they might not be expecting, and that could be everything from home health aides that are coming and going, and a schedule that needs to be kept to and for a reason, and kind of prep them around what to expect in terms of medical equipment, and even just things like the appearance of their loved one. It may have drastically changed, or their ability to communicate, and give them some tips ahead of time on how to do that. It's going to be very individual, and that caregiver is the expert. Yeah. So they really need to let their family know, maybe someone is going to have some difficulty eating and things like that. And maybe help isn't necessarily what's needed. Maybe just giving that person the opportunity to eat the way that they're able to eat is what's needed in that situation. But just letting people know what they're going to see ahead of time.
Yeah. That's a great tip.
Make it a comfortable experience for everybody. No shocks walking in the door. Particularly sometimes families coming in from a long way away and haven't visited recently, and they really are not prepared for some of the changes.
As a supervisor, what are some of the common emotions that caregivers express?
Well, it runs the gamut. It can be an emotional roller coaster. There can be joy in having this opportunity to be able to have that intimate relationship with the person that they're caring for. But other emotions that are very real are things like anxiety, not knowing what each day is going to bring, not knowing what the future is going to bring. And that can make people just in a state of worry. And so we, obviously try and help support people in terms of understanding this is just, it's a genuine emotion. The future is unknown, and try and work with finding the pleasures in the moments that you can. Other emotions, guilt. I feel like I'm not doing enough, or I really wish this would end. It doesn't feel good to have, these strong emotions, but the reality is most caregivers are doing the best that they can, and that's why we want to validate what they're feeling. And support them in those feelings and let them know that they're not alone. We often encourage people to reach out for support groups so that they can realize that these emotions are not just their emotions. Yeah. These are common emotions. Sometimes grief comes in. This isn't the person that I married 50 years ago. This isn't the sister that I once knew. It is sad, to see changes in someone that you love so dearly. It is part of our life cycle, and none of us know what the future will hold. And so to, allow somebody to say, yeah, I am sad, but to hopefully be able to work through that. We always encourage people, if these are prolonged emotions and they're having difficulties, while support groups can help, always talk with your doctor, seek out professional help, because it can, be a lonely experience. It can be depressing, but it can also have its rewards. Yeah. And the last emotion that is one that I think a lot of people don't feel comfortable with, and that's anger. And that may be anger at themselves, that I should be just fine with doing this, or anger at others. Well, they don't have to, do this day in, day out, or this person does, can travel and I'm at home. It's human. We all are human. And so again, these emotions are some of what people can feel, and it's really important to hear them, acknowledge it, provide the support that you can, and for family members to understand that, what that person is going through. It can mean a real lot when a sibling or, another person says to them, I see how difficult this can be for you. Yeah. I hear you.
So what are some of the coping strategies that you guys recommend to help families
Sure.
and caregivers?
Well, I like to teach caregivers an acronym. It's HALTS, and it really stands for Never Let Yourself Get Too Hungry, Angry, Lonely, Tired, or Scared. And through the holidays, and really any time for a caregiver, this is a way to just kind of a self-check-in. And I think we all need that, particularly when, even at the best of times, the holidays can be pretty chaotic sometimes. And so, stop, literally the halts, stop. In the midst of the chaos, come to a halt and check in with yourself. How are you feeling? Have you eaten recently? Have you had anything to drink recently? I like to encourage people to, just a couple of times a week, try to plan for one meal. If you can't do it any more than that, try to plan for one meal where you can have a quiet, uninterrupted meal where you can have a nutritious, peaceful, unhurried time to just settle. I think that nurtures the body and the spirit a little bit. And that's one way I think through the holidays a caregiver can kind of regroup a little. As we were talking about great gifts for the caregivers, just even if you can let family know sometime during the holidays, you'd love to have them just run in on meals. Maybe that gives you an opportunity to go run your errands and do your shopping, or again, just take a nap and crash for a while. Then hungry, angry. Lynn was talking about anger, and I think it's important. Anger I always consider kind of a cover emotion, and it's important to kind of just stop again and take a little time to get underneath that and kind of feel where the anger is coming from and think about that a little bit, and maybe even challenge what you're thinking a little bit. Is it realistic? And really think it through. And then sometimes if there really is a very real concern, reach out to a friend that you can really trust and share what your concern is and maybe get some unbiased feedback. Or if it does have to do with needing more help and that sort of thing, give us a call at the Area Agency on Aging, because we talk through these kinds of things with caregivers all the time. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of loneliness, we know that caregivers are so much more likely to be isolated than the general population. That's just by virtue of their role. Their day-to-day work can be very isolating. Sometimes they don't even have an opportunity to have a conversation with someone that they really can have a conversation with for days on end. So we really, first of all, when they are sharing their needs with family for the holidays, it's important not to necessarily make them feel like you don't want them to visit, but again, to help them understand that maybe it's going to need to be a shorter visit. Encourage them to visit by all means, but let them know what they're going to be experiencing, and that you may need to cut it a little bit short. And sometimes, over the holidays, you might get be able to build in a little bit of time to reach out to an old classmate or friend or neighbor and just reconnect. And maybe if you just tell yourself, I'm going to set aside a little bit of time to do this, because just that long-term disconnection can be so isolating for caregivers. And then certainly in terms of being tired, we know that many caregivers are really sleep deprived. And so going into the holidays like that, with more on your plate than even you normally would have, is really tough. So again, pay attention to your sleep habits. Try to gear down gradually as it's time to go to bed. You're not going to go 90 miles an hour and hit that bed and expect to go right to sleep. And watch some of the stimulants that people might have over the holidays, whether it's alcohol, whether it's nicotine, those sorts of things. They actually can interrupt sleep. And then certainly scared, as Lynn said, caregivers are dealing with a lot of, really a lot of uncertainty on many levels in their lives. And it's a day-to-day basis, and it can become very ingrained. And so it's very hard sometimes to let go of that. And so this is one of those places where you kind of have to stop and think about what it is that, is creating the anxiety. And maybe it even means stopping a little while and pulling out a notebook and just journaling your thoughts and feelings a little bit, so that you can really get at what it is that's really causing that sense of anxiety. Again, reach out for some help. If call us at the Area Agency on Aging if you've got, again, someone that you think you can confide in who understands your situation. I always encourage caregivers, be careful who you confide in, because sometimes if they haven't been in your shoes, they really don't get it. But at that point, that also will kind of help you kind of bounce ideas and brainstorm, problem solve around whatever it is that's creating the anxiety.
To learn more about caregiving during the holidays, you can visit www.coaaa.org or call 614-645-7250. Thanks for watching City Chat on CTV.